All right, so you've got an xTool. There's something new inside that software. Laser Map Maker is integrated inside the xTool software. You can design map files and send them straight to your laser. No exporting and no hassle. Today I'm going to show you just how easy it is to make a layer map like this using the xTool P2 and only using the xTool software. If you've never made a map before or you found it difficult in the past, we're about to show you just how easy it is.
So as an XCS user, you can open up xTool Creative Space, also known as Atom, and go ahead and create a new project. We're just gonna rename this real quick to Laser Map Maker. Once you're in the studio here, we'll go ahead and head over to Applications, and this is where Laser Map Maker lives, at the bottom here, called Map Designer. Go ahead and click Map Designer, and this little nice embed will pop up. If you are not logged in already, then you'll have to log in. Mine is already logged in because I was on this computer this morning and I was logged in from the website that's online, and so it recognizes that. So go ahead and click Dashboard. We're going to create a new project right here. So click New Project. For this, we're going to do my friend's hometown, which is in Astoria, Oregon. This is just the project name. We'll use the starter template. This will come with all of the layers that you would need to get your map files out the door without having to know much about Laser Map Maker. And click Create Project. Now that we're in the studio, this nice little embed that you can see inside the XCS software here, you can actually expand. So I'm going to expand the whole way. That way we have like more map we can actually see. And we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing I would do here is I would find where I want to go. And so I come over to the search tool here on the right hand side and click that. And for this one, we're going to go ahead and put in Astoria, Oregon in the search bar, and you'll see a drop down. You just click Astoria, Oregon. And then it's going to zoom in real far on the location, but you have complete control to zoom out the way you want to zoom and get the frame that you want. This is about where I want it, but I'm going to adjust it. I just want it to get like kind of the peninsula and the frame and everything kind of like how I'm thinking about doing it. So the next step actually is I'm going to be putting this into a frame. So the actual shape of this map is going to be the state of Oregon using our state shapes. So on the map shape icon over here, click that to open it. You'll go ahead, click US states, and we'll go ahead and scroll down and click Oregon, and you'll see a change. So we'll go ahead and click close this, and this basically is just taking the shape of Oregon, and you can see that there's like a border around it. This is all because we use the starter template, and the starter template comes with some settings that we think that you would like, but you're welcome to change. So now that we have this shape of Oregon, let's go ahead and kind of reposition a little bit. The nice thing is, I think that I would like all of this in the frame, but maybe I want it zoomed in a little more. I'm going to go ahead over here on this tool and go to aspect ratio and size, and I'm going to change that. So I'm just going to make it a little bigger. That way I can actually zoom in just a tad more, and I think that looks pretty good. If you're doing a map and you need to, you can always close this while you're working. Makes it really nice. Before we get into editing the map, I wanted to show you the icons on the right hand side real quick in a little bit more detail. The toggle full screen is great for being able to see the whole map without a bunch of distractions. You can lock the map if you'd like to, so you don't accidentally bump it. We'll get back to toggle inspect mode later, but this is going to help you identify the map features that you are working with. Satellite overlay will help you find the spot on the map with ease if you're more familiar with using something like Google Earth or anything like that. Our search lets you search anywhere on the map as well as read the coordinates for that area. Our zoom, if you don't want to use the mouse while you're looking at the screen there, you can also just use the zoom settings. Rotate, exactly what it says. You can rotate the map and it will give you a different perspective. Scale, this will help create more detail at specific zoom levels. Map shape, just as you see on the screen, we changed the shape to the state of Oregon, and you can change to a various amount of shapes that we have in our library there. So now we can move on to the left-hand side, which this is where we're going to be editing and preparing our maps for export. You might have noticed that there's these 3 names here that pop up on the side. These are referred to as layers. This is what the starter template is. It comes with layers, and they each have features that live inside. So we have landfill and waterfill for the land cut layer, and we will show you how all that stuff works later. What we're going to do first is actually change the border width. This is the border width it came with, but I'd like to update the border width to something a little thinner. And to avoid any confusion, I'm going to go ahead and hide the other 2 layers while we're working. So the first thing we're going to do is click these 3 little dots in the land cut layer, and we're going to go to configure layer options here and scroll all the way down to border width here on the bottom and change it to 20. You may have noticed that the outside border didn't change at all. That's because we have 3 borders because of these 3 layers that are stacked on top of each other. So we'll see the result here at the end. So as you can see, all the borders are now shrunk down to that, and I'm going to go ahead and turn these layers back on so we can do our next step, which is editing the layers. Now for editing, we could do a lot of different things here, but thanks to the starter template, it's actually pretty ready to go. I'll give you a quick demonstration of how you could go over a specific feature if you wanted to make it better. And in our case, it'll be the road's thickness layer. We'll go ahead and just make it a bit thicker. And that's always good because if you're cutting wood, it could become too brittle and break. And so it's a really good example of a way to edit a layer based on the material you're using. Now in our case, we're actually going to use acrylic for the roads, but I do want a little bit thicker of a road anyway to make it a little bit more amplified. Since we want to work with the roads cut layer, we could go ahead and turn off the layers here. And now we just see what's going to be on the roads cut layer. Each layer will be its own file. So you can imagine what will happen here in this file. If we open up the roads cut layer, we'll see a lot of stuff in here that looks a little bit confusing and overwhelming. Thanks to the starter template, you didn't have to do any of the work, but we do want to edit it. So we have a couple choices here. The first one would be to click the 3 little dots. And then you can select this first icon here that says select all features in layer. And now at the top, you'll see 14 lines selected and you can click style. This way you can actually go down here and choose a line width that you want. You see there's color and a bunch of other ones in here that would be really useful for curating a map style for your needs. So I'm going to click the plus sign on this line width here. And as you can see, if I'm just going to make it really drastic, you can see how much it changes. We're pretty happy with 7 already, but I'm going to go ahead and move it to like, let's try 9. And then maybe I want to zoom in just a tad. Let's go ahead and just do 8. So we were pretty close where we wanted to be, but I think I'm going to leave it at that. And then the secondary method that you could have used, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to use this tool where you can select all features and then deselect all features. So now we don't have anything selected and there's no purple icon ready to style those specific layers. The secondary way you could do it is you could use our toggle inspect mode. Just click it to turn it on and you can hover over any feature, and I'll give you an example here. You can see down below it says roadways motor trunk and roadways secondary tertiary. These are just feature names, and since I'm able to hover over them and you can see them both there, that actually means they're both selectable right now. So here I'll give you an example of just selecting one. I can only select what's showing up as a label below there, roadways secondary tertiary. I could select it, and on the left hand side you'll see one line selected, and now I can style it. Or I could try to hover over both, and now you'll see both there, and I can click, and now you'll see 2 lines selected, and you can go in and style those 2 lines. So it's really helpful if you're just wanting to change like one specific area and not the whole map. But personally, I would click the 3 little dots and select all features and layer for the road specifically, because it's really nice to have them all be the same thickness typically. So let's go ahead and turn these back on and give it one last look over. I'm happy with this map using the starter template. As you can see, it wasn't too painful. Let's go ahead and click the preview export and give it a nice overview before we export. Now we're in the preview export. It might look a little confusing, but I promise you it's fairly simple. You have basically 3 tabs here: layers, tiling, and export. And right now we're in the layers tab, which is a review of some of the tracing options and output formats, which are like the file type. You don't actually have to change anything because you chose the starter template. So we can actually move along, click next. In tiling, the tiling feature is really not allowed for state shapes. It's more just for squares and rectangles. So we can click next to that. And now we're at the final screen here where we have a layer summary, and it gives us just kind of an overview of each layer. Again, the starter template already had these pre-plugged in for you, so you don't have to really worry about it or understand it at this time. We do have on the right hand side a way for you to look at layers individually and how they might look. You can combine them at the top here. It looks about what we're hoping to export and get. Now, right before we export, you'll see this export cost equals 3 credits. Basically what that means is because we're exporting 3 layers, which will turn into 3 files, each layer will cost 1 credit. So let's go ahead and export. All right, this is the export screen where your projects are saved. So as you can see down here in the exports under the hometown for Astoria, Oregon, you'll see the time stamp today at 11:20 a.m. and you'll see these little teeny thumbnail files that show you each file individually. You can open all files in xTool with this one button up here. Personally, I like to bring them in separately. That way I can move them around and out of the way. So let's go ahead and start by selecting the land layer, and we'll click Open in xTool. Once it gets in xTool, you can see it was hard to see it at the moment there. That's because this map is really big. We export in 4K. It comes in as this big object. The nice part is we have complete control of the actual end size, but we give it to you in a big file so that the definition is there. Okay, so we're in the studio and we have this huge image. Let's go ahead and scale down the height. I know I want this to be 177.8 millimeters, which actually just makes it 7 inches tall. And let's go ahead and click the applications again and click Map Designer. You'll see it took us right back to where we left off. Open the land layer engrave. We'll go ahead and do the same thing and change the height. Okay, so we have the files now from Laser Map Maker in XES, aka Atom. I could quickly explain that the top one here is a engrave layer that's going to go nicely, and then we have this land layer, which is going to be a cut layer, and then the roads layer here. You might notice there's these borders across each one. This is just our tracing tool giving us these alignment borders so that we can make it sure everything lines up before we cut. So the first thing I'd like to do is go ahead and just tell xTool, XCS software, what we're trying to do with each layer. Now these were separated for Laser Map Maker purposes, but for the actual cutting and engraving, we actually need to align these so that when we push go on the laser cutter and engraver, it will do the engrave job as well as the cut job on the same piece of wood, because these two pieces right here are our land piece. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the land layer engrave, and then I'm going to select the land layer cut, and I'm going to use this tool here that lets them align centered horizontally and vertically. So now you can see all of these are nice and on top of each other, and we just have one more thing we need to do, which is we need to get rid of these borders. So let's go ahead and just select the border, ungroup, click out, and then we can click the border freely, and I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard. And then you can see that there's one more border, which is the land cut border. So we'll do the same thing. We'll select it, click ungroup, click, and then we'll select the border and click delete on the keyboard. So now you have the land cut and land engrave that are set with the correct settings, and they are going to be one job that you can just grab and bring over to the laser bed without having to do two separate jobs. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the roads cut. And now we're ready to go. You may have noticed that we didn't actually do any kind of water layer, and here we have a land layer and then this big roads layer that's going to go on top. That's actually because the water layer is just a solid piece that goes on bottom. But since we're doing the shape of organ, we should match that same shape. So I'm going to go ahead and select the land cut layer outline here, copy with my keyboard and paste with my keyboard. And then we now have this nice cutout. And this we'll cut it out with some blue, and we'll slide it right under the land layer. If that's confusing to you, don't worry, we're about to go cut and engrave and show you firsthand.
So the first layer that we're going to do is the land cut layer. We set up the XCS, or aka Atom, to cut with 3mm birch plywood. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. So we've cut out our wood piece and it looks fantastic. You see the road engraves there and this nice outline of Oregon. This will be the middle piece. The next thing we need to do is make the bottom, which will be the water, using the blue acrylic. This also means that we're going to need, once we set it in here, to change our settings in XCS, aka Atom, so that instead of cutting with 3mm birch ply, we will be using blue 3mm acrylic. All right, our laser is done cutting. It was very, very quick because it is just a bottom piece. A nice shiny shape of Oregon right next to our handy dandy land cut. And we'll go ahead and remove the rest of this acrylic and set it down. And we'll do our last piece here, which will be the roads. A nice white 3mm acrylic. We don't have to change any settings in the software because we already set up 3mm acrylic for our last one. So we just need to go and change what we want to be cut to the road. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit process and start. So now that we have our 3 layers, land, water, and roads cut out and our frame built, we can glue it all together and then put it up on the wall and see how it looks. Making laser cut maps has never been easier, especially if you own an xTool. Right now, you can get 2 weeks free by signing in through the xTool software. With Laser Map Maker now inside xTool software, you can design, cut, and assemble custom maps all in one place.